welcome back to my channel. I got back from Lisbon, Portugal about 2 weeks ago after solo traveling there for 6 days, and I wanted to share with you guys my experience and also provide some solo traveling tips. I definitely think that Lisbon is the destination for solo traveling, whether you're a first-time solo traveler or an experienced solo traveler. I spent 2 days working remotely there and 4 days exploring the city and going to a nearby town called Sintra. And there are multiple modes of transportation in Lisbon, making it super easy to get around. The weather there is also amazing year-round. I went off peak in January and it was still amazing. And you can plan as touristy of an itinerary as you want to because there are a lot of tours and museums you can visit. Or you can take a slower approach by walking around the city and getting lost, going cafe hopping, just like I did. And the food in Lisbon is also amazing. They're one of the best gastronomy capitals in Europe, and there's plenty of fresh seafood everywhere and amazing wine if you like wine. People are so friendly in Lisbon, so you will have plenty of help when you need it, but you most likely won't because it's really easy to get around. And most importantly, it felt really, really safe to me as a solo female traveler when I was in Lisbon. So if you need more convincing to go to Lisbon on your own, I can definitely keep going. But let's go ahead and dive a little deeper into what you need to know when you travel solo in Lisbon. All right, so first things first, how you're gonna get from the airport to wherever you're staying, whether that's an Airbnb or a hotel or a hostel. So I took the metro, and the metro actually is very convenient, and it's also a pretty small system. So everything's really well marked and it'd be really hard to get lost. I actually purchased something called a Viva Viagem Pass, which is a metro pass that you can refill. You can do like a 24-hour pass or a 3-day pass, and so I got that. And each ride is 1.65 euro, whether that's taking the metro or the bus. I just took 2 lines and it took about 30 minutes to get there. You can also take a taxi, and that is pretty affordable as well. I chose to stay in an Airbnb, and I think you can go with either an Airbnb or hotel when you're in Lisbon. There are a lot of really cool boutique hotels and just plenty of accommodation options in Lisbon because it is quite a touristy city. I stayed at a 1-bedroom Airbnb in the São Bento area, which was walkable to everything. There were a lot of cafes and restaurants around me, and I loved my Airbnb. If you watched my Lisbon vlogs, then you'll see what it looked like, and it was only $55 a night, equipped with a kitchen, a table, because I was working remotely there, so I needed like a dedicated workspace, and the Wi-Fi was amazing. And I'll definitely link this Airbnb below because it also felt really safe. It was kind of in like a gated little village community area, so I highly recommend it. But I think when it comes to Lisbon, Airbnbs are probably a good option because there are so many cool apartments you can stay at. Some of them even have rooftop terraces where you can see the whole city of Portugal. It is a very hilly city, so you get views on top of views. So definitely get Airbnbs if you can, and they are pretty affordable for the kind of quality and value that you get out of them as well. Next, I wanted to touch on transportation because, like I mentioned, there are so many ways you can get around Lisbon. So the first is the metro, of course, and then second is bus, which I took a few times using the pass that I purchased. And the bus system is really easy. It kind of just works like any other bus system. And you can also take the tram, and this is where Lisbon reminds me a lot of San Francisco in the sense that because it's very hilly, they have tram/cable cars for you to get around. And I took the tram on the last day that I was in Lisbon. It was a really fun experience. And again, that pass will get you on the trams as well because locals take it, and it's a great way to get around. When you do your research on going to Lisbon, you might hear of the 28 tram, which is a very famous tram that kind of gets you through all the main like touristy districts. And yeah, I think that it's a really fun experience. Here in New York City, we don't have trams, so it was nice to take like a different mode of transportation when I was there. Another option is taking an Uber, which I actually did once when I was there. I could have taken the tram, but I had to rush to get my luggage from the luggage storage space that I was at. But you can definitely take an Uber, and they are really affordable and easy as well to take. And the last is walking. And I would say Lisbon is very walkable. You just need to keep in mind that there are hills, so you want to wear comfortable shoes and you want to be prepared to break a sweat when you need to. But I love walking because you can just kind of get lost in streets and stop whenever you want to, and there's beauty everywhere in Lisbon. It's so easy to just like stop somewhere and take a picture because of something pretty that you see. So I would definitely recommend walking a lot when you're there. It's really the best way to get to know a city. The next reason why I think Lisbon makes the perfect solo traveling destination is because of safety. And I know this is a big factor in a lot of people's decisions when they decide to travel somewhere alone, but do not worry because Lisbon is the safest city in Europe to travel to. And when I was taking a walking tour, I remember the tour guide telling us that Portugal is the 6th safest country in the world. So do not worry. I was a solo female traveler when I was there, and I felt safe and early in the morning, even at night. I didn't go out like super late. I think the latest I ever stayed out was like a little before midnight, and I felt really safe because the streets are really lit up. There aren't really even pickpocketers. Granted, I wasn't in like a lot of the touristy districts, but even when I was there, I didn't feel like I needed to be like extra alert when I was, you know, walking around by myself. Of course I still was, but Lisbon in general just made me feel really safe. And even when I was like purchasing things on the streets or walking around in like crowded areas, I didn't have to worry about hagglers as well, or just people trying to push me to buy things. There weren't really any of that. If safety is a concern for you, you will love Lisbon because you don't need to worry about that very much. The next reason why I think that Lisbon is the perfect solo traveling destination is because it's very tourism friendly. Lisbon is a place where a lot of tourists go every year, whether they're from Europe or even America or other countries. So there are so many things you can do. There are a lot of museums you can visit. And a lot of neighborhoods. So a few neighborhoods that I've noted here is Bairro Alto, which means upper town in Portuguese, and it's kind of like the party district where there's a lot of pubs and bars, and it gets super lively there at night. There's also Baixa and Chiado, which are kind of like the downtown areas. So a lot of shops, a lot of cafes and restaurants. And then there's also Alfama, which if you've been doing your research in Lisbon, you'll see that a lot of people say that you should get lost there. It's basically like a little village where there are a lot of really narrow alley streets and people still live there. It's very colorful, and it's also very quiet because it's kind of away from the main street, so you don't hear any cars at all when you're there. And there are fruit trees everywhere. There's murals, there's art, there's little shops and restaurants. And it's just a great place to go and take pictures and just get lost. There are also a lot of tours that you can do. I was on Airbnb experiences and there were so many options. Like you can take an egg tart making class, you can do a sailing tour, you can do walking tours. And I also love that there were so many parks and also like viewpoints in Lisbon. Those viewpoints were breathtaking because Lisbon is such a hilly place. So there were like multiple viewpoints that you can go to. I went to 2 of them, and you can just sit on a bench and just kind of daydream, look out at the view, take a breather after climbing all those hills. So there are just so many things that you can do in Lisbon that you will never get bored, and you can make your itinerary as touristy as you want to, or you can really take a very local approach by traveling slow, walking around, not paying for so many things because you don't really need to. Lisbon is very slow paced of a city, a lot more than other cities in Europe that I've been to. So it's just a very chill area and you have a lot of freedom to tailor your itinerary however way you want to. One of the biggest reasons why I decided to go to Lisbon solo was because of its affordability. At least for me, living in New York City, Lisbon was definitely very affordable. When I was going to lunch, there were like lunch specials where you can get an entree with a beer and an espresso afterwards, and that was one set price. Walking will also save you a lot of money as well. It's definitely saved me money because I walked over half of the time and then I took public transportation the other times. And even the accommodation. Again, my Airbnb was really affordable per night and it was a great location with great amenities in it. The Wi-Fi was fast enough for me to work remotely as well. So if I were to have traveled to another European country, say for example Paris, my accommodation could have easily been double what I paid per night in Lisbon. So if you're planning on traveling solo where you're not able to like split the cost with someone else, for example, to make it cheaper, you have to kind of pay all the costs yourself, then Lisbon is great because it is so affordable. And you don't have to worry about spending too much money when you're there. And lastly, I just have some random tips that I wrote down here for you guys. First one is bring some comfortable walking shoes because you will be going up a lot of hills and you want to be comfortable when you're walking so much in Lisbon. I brought my New Balance Fresh Foams, which to me are the most comfortable running shoes ever, and my feet never hurt in them, so they were perfect for the trip. The tap water is clean and safe to drink. My Airbnb host actually let me know that, so I didn't need to like go out and buy a big gallon of bottled water like I usually do, and the water tasted great, so that's something to note. Another thing is that you don't need to tip when you're in Lisbon. I didn't tip at all when I was there. I know that you can if you have like some spare change, but don't worry about tipping. It's very similar to the rest of Europe where you don't need to. I highly recommend a day trip to Sintra if you have time. It is about 30 minutes of a drive out from Lisbon, and I booked a tour on Airbnb Experiences to go to Sintra, and it was a full day tour that included the Penna Palace as well as some other sites and a lunch by the beach, including some wine tasting. So that was really fun. But if you have time, I would definitely get out of Lisbon a little bit. Sintra is a really popular day trip, so you can take the train and go there yourself, or there are so many tours that you can book online. And most places do accept card. I really didn't have to use cash except for really once or twice, but most places do take card. Another random tip is that seafood can be seasonal, so I would recommend kind of looking into that or even asking the restaurant owner what kind of seafood is in season, because when I was having lunch one day in Lisbon, I ordered the sardines because I know that sardines are really good in Portugal, and there was a local next to me eating cod, and he actually turned to me and said that sardines are not in season in January. So most likely what I was eating was frozen, and that was actually really helpful for me because I like to eat things that are seasonal, obviously. So because Portugal is really known for seafood, I would kind of look into what's seasonal and stick with that. In terms of language, you do not need to worry because most Portuguese people do speak English. Of course, I would recommend having some basic knowledge of how to say hi, thank you, good morning, please, all those things. But in terms of getting around, you don't need to worry because as long as you speak English or some English, you'll be completely fine. And a little bonus tip for anyone who's thinking of working remotely in Lisbon, just a little bit of my experience. I thought that Lisbon was the perfect place for me to work remotely because I live in New York City and Lisbon is actually 5 hours ahead of New York time. So typically in New York, if I start my workday at 9 a.m., I would actually start in Lisbon at 2 p.m., which means that my workday was about 2 to 10 or 2 to 11 p.m. in Lisbon. And so I had the morning before 2 to kind of explore the city, go out for lunch, maybe go on a tour that starts in the morning. So it was kind of perfect the way that it worked out because you wouldn't feel like you needed to waste your day. And then a lot of Portuguese people or Europeans in general, they eat dinner quite late at night. So even after work, there are still plenty of dining options for you, and you can still even go to a bar if that's what you want to do. So I would say that if you're looking to work remotely in Lisbon, the time difference definitely works out. I hope all this information helped, and if you're even hesitant at all about coming to Lisbon, I do hope that I've eased some of your doubts because I do truly believe that Lisbon is the perfect destination to go in the world when you're traveling solo. Whether you're an introvert who likes to just kind of explore the city at your own pace, or if you're a solo traveler that wants to go and meet people from around the world and make friends, Lisbon is the perfect place no matter what kind of person you are. So I hope this video was convincing for some of you who are thinking about going. I do have some upcoming trips planned, including one that's going to be for a wedding, a destination wedding, coming up in about a week and a half. I just have to get through this upcoming work week, which is going to be quite busy, but at least I have something to look forward to after this. So stay tuned for those vlogs, and thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!